been a bit of a hiatus from the HSEQ Leaders podcast for a couple of weeks. So I'm very excited to have Cam Stevens on today to chat to us. I'm not sure how much you or the audience would know about Cam Stevens. I'll let Cam sort of introduce himself as we go, but for some context, I also came 15 minutes late to this, and then it took me 10 minutes to log in on Zoom, which is a pet hate when it happens to me as a recruiter, when people can't log in via Zoom and instructions, and it's even more embarrassing when I'm talking to the tech guru, which is Cam. G'day, Cam. How are we?
Well, thanks, mate. No sweat. All good.
Well, I guess I've already kind of given you a very brief intro, but I don't want to steal your thunder. So can you give the cliff notes on, or the brief intro, I should say, on who you are, Cam, and a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm currently going by Cam Stevens. Interesting footnote. Every time I change jobs, I go between Cameron and Cam just to get a clear
delineation.
Delineation, so that one job people know me as Cameron, another job people know me as Cam. So you might know me as either Cam or Cameron, currently known as Cam. I guess cliff notes of my career. I started my professional career quite late. I travelled after school. I started my apprenticeship as a chef actually when I was travelling around, and I didn't get into sort of this professional world until I started physio in 2004, and then transitioned into vocational rehab, out of physio into the world of sort of health and safety through the health side. I did my master's in human factors, worked various roles around the globe, mostly in high-risk industry, a lot in the oil and gas sector, but also in utilities and some in local government bits and pieces. And then in 2019, I moved full-time into tech to get a better understanding of the world of tech. I haven't come from a background. I grew up in the Nintendo era, but wasn't actually, apart from playing games and early internet, I didn't really have a tech background myself, so I felt compelled to learn more about that. So jumped full-time into tech in 2019, worked for a few different hardware companies in the wearable and augmented and virtual reality space. And 2023, I decided I would package up all that experience together in my own consulting practice. So I currently run a boutique work design and digital transformation consultancy for health and safety. And I also feel you can't just work as a consultant and tell people what they should be doing and not practice it yourself. So I actually also work as a safety advisor for the Australian Automation and Robotics Precinct, where I put my money where my mouth is really, and get to practice all the things that I support my clients doing. So yeah, that's the cliff notes.
That's the cliff notes. Well, before we go into the transition from safety to tech safety, outside of work, who are you, and what are you about when you're not in the safety tech space, Cam?
Yeah, all right. So I'm a dad. I've got a couple of kids and a husband to my beautiful wife, and love to travel a lot, love experiencing different cultures, big on nature, cooking, but a lot of my pursuits are on hold at the moment just because I've just been undergoing, I had recently underwent hip surgery for my sins. Had a pretty significant sports history, so rehabbing from hip surgery. So I'm on the sidelines for a bit at the moment.
It's it's that we're not too dissimilar in age, and it's your hip, it's my ankle, and it's that stuff that they don't tell you in your 20s, right? And it starts catching up on you in your 30s and approaching 40s. So, mate, let's talk about what's really interesting here for you. I guess how did you make the change? You came through that health pathway, chef, health pathway, safety. How did you get into tech? What drew you to it? Because you're one of the few thought leaders, if you will, in that space.
Yeah, well, I mean, firstly, getting into safety from physio was a pretty clear move. I was disenchanted with the fact that I was dealing with the downstream impacts of what was happening to people, particularly when it was a work-related injury in the clinic. and I just felt compelled to learn more about, well, why is this stuff happening? And that got me really interested in just understanding how work works. I never really had a huge exposure to the world of work because I was a professional athlete. So when I finally got in the clinic and people were coming to me and talking to me about these different jobs and how they were getting injured, I was fascinated by that. And just, once I got out into the working world to learn more about what was actually going on in different industries, it was pretty clear to me early on that technology was actually what was driving a lot of the way that work was organized, planned and executed. And I felt that I didn't really understand that, and that I observed through my early career that safety professionals were never really invited to the table to talk about or support the design of integrating technology into businesses. And that didn't sit with me, but I felt a real imposter syndrome that I just didn't know about technology enough to be able to contribute. So I figured, what better way to learn about that and then to dive into it myself. And that's what I did. I pestered people, and I wrote cold call emails to as many technology companies as I could. And fortuitously, I managed to, I was getting I was doing a software procurement for one of the companies I was working at. And there was a guy that came in and did a software demo for me. And I actually thanked him for just caring about me in the software demo. Like, he actually cared about my context. He learnt about my business before he did the demonstration of the technology. And purely by me saying thanks for that, that was actually really helpful to be able to get someone that cares about what I need, what my needs are. I just think we clicked, and he ended up moving on to a technology company that, and I just mentioned in passing, look, I'm desperately seeking for a role in tech to learn more about it. And yeah, he ended up saying, I'm setting up a new business here in Australia. You should come and join. And that's kind of how it happened.
Nice. So a well presented presentation is the was and obviously being curious as well, but and being confident. But that was how you got in there then.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. Ask. You might as well ask, right? There's no harm in asking.
Well, mate, you're speaking to a recruiter on that sense, so I can testify for that as well. So, what's the biggest learning you've done? Actually, I've got to go back super quickly because I don't know this, but you might have told me before, but I think there's a lot of people that are listening will probably be intrigued. What was the professional sport?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, there was several. I've represented Australia for roller skating, springboard and platform diving, high diving, cliff diving, trampolining, roller skating, and Western Australia for rugby.
Mate, no wonder the hips gone. That's that pivot point right there. That's all of the sports are not good for that. No, I think I knew about the roller skate. I didn't know about the rest of it. But talking about younger self back in the day, what's the biggest learning that you'd give to your younger self then, Cam, in that sense?
I think the biggest, the best,
that is
the advice said, I think it's to play the long game. Like,
yep.
When you're seeking that dopamine hit and working in that high impact, high energy environment, and you feed off fast paced, high risk, you lose sight of the fact that there's a longer game to play, and that can mean that you can be a little bit more abrasive with your relationships, and that you can burn bridges quickly and things like that if you don't consider the long-term the long-term actions. I guess adjacent to that is see things through. So you might look at my career and go, well, you've chopped and changed, but whatever I did and I committed to, I saw to the end. Even if I'd left the business, I still somehow managed to see things through the end that I'd started, even if it was just in a advisory capacity or in some form of just checking in to make sure that what I'd started had actually seen some longevity. So yeah, playing the long game for me is a mindset or that I didn't have as a younger professional, or as a younger human. And probably something I don't think I would have changed if I knew the advice, but I think it's an important advice for someone to give you that advice at some point in your career, to go like, there's actually more to this than just today.
I spoke to someone relatively new in their career, and I connected them actually to somebody else to have a chat for exactly that. I was speaking to them because I was very much the same. Like, my early part of the career, I appreciate not safety, but multiple different avenues, right? And it's exactly that. I think understanding, right, that it is a long game and it's a marathon in terms of your career, and it's about keeping those relationships 5, 10, 15 years down the line. I probably wouldn't have listened to myself either, but I realized when I was giving that advice, I sounded so old, that like an old man, passing down the advice. But yeah, I think that's an excellent piece of advice and something I live by as well, Cam. Where are we? I've got to go to the next question. Well, not the younger self, and I know you've got some opinions on this, but safety professionals in general, what's your piece of advice for the industry that you would give as someone that's still actively involved in it, albeit in a niche section?
It's always been very simple for me my entire career, and I think this word gets used a lot now because of some of these newer view philosophies of how safety works, but really it's practice curiosity. Be curious. It's been a cornerstone of my life, has been be curious, no judgment, just go out there, and you only have one life, so learn as much as you can. So by practicing curiosity, you get so much more knowledge and understanding about the world and how it works. And really, that's what I encourage in my daughter. Got asked when, what's one thing that I wish for her to be doing at school, and it's just be curious.
Yeah. Well, it's an element of intelligence with that as well, right? Like questioning and interested in constantly learning as well, I think, right?
Yeah, through curiosity comes all of those things, but to be closed-minded around that doesn't work, particularly in safety professional practice, where you are so visible and have so much access to the business. I think you have a responsibility to practice curiosity.
Absolutely. And I guess that segues nicely. So outside of curiosity, I know you've hired people and consulted to people and given advice to other professionals. What do you look for in safety professionals, and what stands out for you, again, outside of curiosity, what stands out for you in terms of a skill set or a personality or an attribute, when hiring or when working in a team? What does that look like for you?
So I guess the easiest way to summarize that is diversity in thought. So there's diversity in thinking. That doesn't have to be diversity, gender or culture. They typically will, by having diversity in gender or diversity in cultural background and language and those sort of things, will give diversity in thought. But it's the diversity in thinking that I seek to build a team when I'm hiring. I don't want someone that emulates the same thinking philosophies that I have. I want people to be thinking differently about solutions, about challenges that are being presented, so that diversity in thought enables us to be able to create more holistic and more sustainable solutions. That's so whether that means that you are physically hiring for diversity in other ways, the thinking diversity is the thing that really hits home for me.
Yeah, sort of adjacent to that point, that is feedback I've given to hiring managers before. When we talk about diversity, it is more than just physical diversity, right? And it is a broad spectrum in terms of that diversity of thought as well. Can add value to a team for sure.
Yeah.
So leadership, what does that look like to you, and what do you think a good leader is when it comes to a safety professional being a leader?
I guess one of the key qualities from a leadership standpoint is that what makes a leader versus someone that's not a leader is, there's lots of different things, but one of them would probably be the ability to formulate and articulate vision. So I think if you leaders consistently can do that, whereas those that aren't good leaders can't articulate vision.
Mm.
So there's obviously all of the key components of what makes quality leadership, things like integrity, trustworthiness, being adaptable to changing situations. But I think what happens with vision is vision enables you to be inspiring, and inspiration enables you to influence. And those are the key qualities that a leader needs to have. So I think if you can't articulate or ideate and create and articulate a vision beyond what people can currently see, then you're not going to be as successful as a leader as being a leader. And that therefore means that you could be leading, you don't have to lead a huge portfolio or a whole part of the business. You could just be leading in a certain domain. And that's because you've got vision and creativity and the ability to see beyond what's currently in front of you.
And
that's my, yeah.
You get people on the journey, right? I know that's catchphrase and I use it a lot, but it's, you need people to buy into the vision to get them to follow you on the journey ultimately, right?
Yeah. So I think, yeah, it's about having a compelling vision and the ability to articulate that, so that people can see beyond, what's, it's good to be working in the present and the now, but it's also important to be able to know, well, where are we going and why are we getting there? And that's what a leader does.
Absolutely.
Is they help people align on that direction.
For sure. In terms of that then, maybe not from a leadership, but an influence on your career and professional life, who do you think's impacted you in that sense, Cam, within a safety or even a tech context?
So from an individual perspective, I have a coach. Have had a coach for I've had coaches in my life, and all of my coaches have been the biggest influence in my life, both coaches from a sporting perspective, and then more in my professional life. So in my professional life, I have a coach. And he introduced me a lot to different versions of philosophy. So Stoic philosophy really guides me. That my coach brought me, introduced me to Stoic philosophy. So things like courage, temperance, so being able to temper yourself, which is a big issue. Like when you're highly strung and you're really kind of energetic person, you need to temper that. Wisdom, justice, they're the kind of things that the Stoics, so Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, brought to my thinking. And then other philosophers, Socrates, Aristotle, Kant, Nietzsche, all those. My coach has given me readings and opened my mind to things that I would have never really been exposed to shape the way that I think about the world, both as a father and as a professional and as a business owner. So he's been really my massive professional influence, and can't thank him enough.
On that note, do you change I don't have a coach. I've had it in the past. I know some people who will be listening will be really intrigued by this. And I do see the value in it. Would you change a coach, or how do you find a coach? And then would you change a coach depending on where you are in life and what you're trying to get? Or how does that coaching element work for you as a professional?
I don't know much about coaches. And the real, I think there's certain, well, let me rephrase that. There are different types of coaches that I haven't been exposed to, and I couldn't give you the ins and outs of what they do. So I, for example, don't have a business coach, but would probably benefit from one, to be honest, if I, from my understanding of what they do. There are folks that I know coach teams and leaders, and I've had coaching in business context, where I found that, and they were provided for me. I never had a choice. How I came across my the coach that I ended up sort of naturally finding an affinity to was a little bit random, to be honest. I was getting acupuncture, traditional Chinese acupuncture, and I was chatting to the acupuncturist, and I was just chatting about what was going on in my life at the time, and they basically said, have you ever thought about talking that through with a coach? And I had never thought about that before. So for me, it was very circumstantial. I don't know how you go about, I haven't thought too much about how you go about selecting a coach. It naturally sort of just came for me.
Thank you.
And
Right.
interesting thing was, I probably spent around about 25% of my annual salary on a coach.
Really? And you got the outcomes from it then since?
It's life-changing for me.
Really?
I'm not saying that that'd be something that anyone else would do.
No, but I haven't heard someone speak about it like that, which is awesome, which is really, really, really interesting to hear,
So and then in different phases of your life, going through grief, loss of loved ones, family challenges, birth of a child, buying a new house, changing job, all of these things, a coach will take on a different role to guide and support and nurture your thinking. But I engaged my coach to help me a lot more with philosophical thinking and asking some of those bigger questions, like what's the point of being here? Like
why are we
why
here?
am I? Who do you get to ask them? My particular coach is trained in psychotherapy and psychodynamic philosophy, so he approaches it that way, and works for me. Would never recommend that. I would never make a recommendation like that to anybody, but yeah, works for me. And actually have never talked about my coaching experience publicly before, I don't believe. So
well, thank you for sharing. There we are. Yeah, I didn't hear about it. This is it's interesting to know, and I'm sure we'll talk more about it now going forward as well, Cam. But conscious of time, mate, you're at the forefront, as I said in the beginning, of the future of safety, or at least, how that integrates as technology. Where do you see us going? Where do you see the industry going? Where do you see the profession going? Where do you see countries, societies going towards their approach to that then in the future?
Well, I think, a lot of this stuff's been happening to us. Technology's become far more integrated into our daily lives. Very clearly, you can see that technology is being, very seamlessly integrated into our personal lives. There's quite a clear delineation between what we do in our personal lives versus what we do at work. And I think that whole work-life dynamic, and it's really interesting because what's happening right now in Australia is the right to disconnect, which I think is a really interesting thing. And I don't know how successful that will be. So there is, I think, generally speaking, technology will become more of a partner for us. Like, it'll just be part of what we do. Back in the day, we used to get a cassette tape, put it in the cassette player and listen to it. It was very, you chose when to use technology and when not to use technology. I think it will be much harder to do. It'll be a lot more of dissolving of technology into our just fabric of what we do. So that's, it's just there. So I think we will get more intelligent and sophisticated about how we choose to seamlessly bring that into health and safety professional practice and how we augment that. I think the role of the safety professional will be somewhat, and I've said this many, many times before, of that of a concierge, of a flight purser. If you go to a hotel concierge, a hotel lobby, and you just got a question to ask, no matter what it is, I believe the safety professional is the person that you'll go and ask that question to. So it would be, a question about technology, or a question about where do I find a process, or who do I speak to about this, or where can I get some advice about that? I think the health and safety professional is best placed to do that. We get given access to an organisation far more than most other functions in a business. But generally speaking, I think, if you look at what the client work that I'm doing right now, people are wanting to offshore administrative work. They're wanting to use technology to support administrative work. So leveraging the tools that exist, so the artificial intelligence technology suites, for example, to support health and safety administration, offshoring teams, so that we've got more practical, when we're actually at sites, we're being far more human with our interactions. So we're starting to see that happen And I guess advice for anybody that's a little bit uncomfortable at the moment, there's no one really pioneering or leading this space. So it is very messy, and that's a good thing. It's okay. And again, if you take that thing of the way knows the way, play the long game, write it out, but be curious. So if you're sitting there going, well, I'm not going to, like, I'll just watch and see what happens, that's not being curious. That's not immersing yourself in the experience. That's not going to be helpful for you longer term. So yeah, I don't know if we have a very clear understanding of where safety professional practice is going, but I don't think the way I was brought up, reading a body of knowledge, applying that body of knowledge into the business, looking at an evidence base that's coming out of university, and then thinking that that's going to be the way that we're going to be working in the future. I don't see that happening. But I think it will take us a little bit of time to deconstruct some of those well-established processes, and that we'll find, we're not going to, so right now, maintenance processes in businesses are very well technology integrated, and they've been doing that for several decades. Whereas I think safety, we're just starting to see some real innovation happening in safety, but it's well at the start. So if anybody's listening to this and feels uncomfortable, that's great. Most people are feeling pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah, no one has all the answers, right, Cam?
No one's got the answers. So, and I guess coming back to that coaching, like, I see through my own experiences, like, I see myself as a bit of a guide, as someone that can provide a guiding hand to organizations and to professionals that are a little bit lost and need someone to help provide them with a bit of direction, some of that vision, and help them take those baby steps to move forward, just so that there is some forward progress and they don't feel that panic or anxiety about the fact that they're getting left behind, because it's not too late to start.
Never too late to start, and we're probably only at the start, right?
Pretty much. That's the way I see it.
Cam, thanks again for jumping on. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person soon. I'll also put, for those that are interested, Cam is probably equally as prolific as me on LinkedIn. So I'll put Cam's LinkedIn underneath, as well as a link to Cam's company, which is Pocket Knife Group, and what he is doing. Mate, thank you very much. It's a very different guest than usual, and it's very insightful every time I talk to you.
Thanks, John. Take care, mate.